Hey everyone, Jessie here from Jessie on a Journey in Travel Blog Prosperity, back with another travel blogging tutorial. This is an interview pulled from my Profitable Travel Blogger podcast, where we are going to be talking all about Pinterest, specifically how to grow your traffic using Pinterest. I've talked about this topic before in a past episode on my podcast, but so much has changed over the past few months. There are some really important tips and things to know when it comes to this platform. So I wanted to hop back on the mic and record a new episode. Now I've brought on a very special guest, Nadalie Bardot, a Pinterest coach who reaches over 5 million on the platform. Nadalie has been able to earn over $100,000 in ads, get a book deal. She sold thousands of copies of her Pinterest course and digital products, and has grown her email list to 25,000 subscribers, all thanks to Pinterest. And today, she's going to be sharing her top tips to help you do the same. But first, I want to thank our sponsor for helping to make today's video possible, Travel Payouts. If you are a blogger looking to grow your traffic, Pinterest should definitely be on your radar. I know for me, it is one of my top traffic generators. The amazing thing about Pinterest is people go on there looking for answers, and they're looking to find pins that they love, and they want to click away from the platform. This isn't true for many other social media platforms where it's more about scrolling. Now, to help you see success with the platform, Travel Payouts has published a really in-depth guide breaking down everything you need to know to see success with Pinterest. I've checked it out for myself, and what I really love about this guide is they've sourced tips from many different bloggers who are seeing success with Pinterest, so you will be getting a variety of very powerful tips. To check out the in-depth Pinterest guide for yourself and start implementing the tips, head to the video description below for the link, and while you're there, make sure to also grab access to my free travel blogger resource library, or you can click the QR code on the screen. Inside, you'll snag access to 55 plus resources, from cheat sheets to workbooks to workshops to video tutorials that can help you truly turn your blog into a profitable business, and that includes a Pinterest cheat sheet based on today's video. I am all about implementation, and I really want to make sure that you don't just listen to the episode and forget about it, but that you actually use what is shared to make your blogging life easier. Feel free to even pause this video to go grab the Pinterest guide from Travel Payouts, as well as access to the Travel Blogger resource library. You back? Then let's dive in. Hey, Nadalie, thank you so much for taking the time to share your Pinterest tips. To start, can you just tell us more about yourself, your business, and how you got into Pinterest?
For sure. Thanks so much for having me, Jessie. So Pinterest has a special place in my heart. Maybe you can also remember when you first started your first online business, your blog. And I remember it was like way back in 2016. I started this blog and I had this struggle, which I'm sure your audience can relate to, is not getting enough traffic, right? Back then, I had heard so many other experts talking about Pinterest, and I decided to investigate, to watch all the videos, to do what I could to figure out the platform. And it transformed everything for me. So, this one choice of using Pinterest has led to me, getting ad revenue from my blog, which turned to someone else saying, hey, you need to make a Pinterest course. So then I started the Pinterest business. It got me a book deal. So much I think of what I do now is because of that choice I made to give Pinterest a try. And, it's so worth figuring out. It was worth figuring out then and so much more, important today, given what's going on with, Google organic search. It's really our best option.
Yes. Yeah, I love the long-term traffic potential of Pinterest. And I'd love to kick things off just by talking about account optimization. What are some important steps bloggers should take to optimize their Pinterest account?
For sure. Like, I'd say number one, you want to just make it look like we're putting in some effort. We're here, we're worth following. And I think that comes across with making sure we have a banner, making sure our photo is recognizable, right? So, Jessie, you have that beautiful photo of yourself that I see on every platform. So I know that's Jessie Festa, right? I want the same for you all as well. You want to write a bio. So make sure you have one or two of your top keyword phrases inside your bio. You want to make sure you have some boards that accurately represent the content you're creating and that are of interest to your audience. So I think, a lot of the times, like maybe we created a Pinterest account and we haven't gotten back to it, or, we're coming back after a long time. Do that little audit. Like, let's do a nice little refresh and make it seem like we want to be here. Like, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to follow an account, I want to make sure that this person cares and they're going to be producing great content, and just making sure we've checked those boxes of profile photo, banner, bio. We've got some boards that are appropriately titled. Maybe we have some board covers. We're doing that. It's like tidying up before company comes over, right? Like, just take those extra steps. It's worth it.
And you mentioned boards. So part of having a healthy Pinterest account is also having actual boards to pin to. How do you recommend bloggers approach creating Pinterest boards, and how many boards should we be creating?
Yeah, so there's no one size for every single, creator answer to that question. I think when you're just starting out, think about it how you would categorize your content on your site. You don't need 50 boards if you just started using Pinterest. You can create boards as you create more content, right? I think it's some crazy number. I think every account is allowed to have 5,000 boards. Please don't do that. Unnecessary. But essentially, all I'm saying is, like, you can grow your boards as you grow your content. So think about, okay, what do I write about right now? What are the destinations? What is the type of travel? What are the countries, the cities, the regions, right? And I would just, make a quick little list. And that's where I would start with creating the boards. And of course, you can have multiple boards for the same location if you have the depth of content. So it really comes down to, like, at what level is your content? So if you're, for example, you focus on Europe, do you talk about Europe in general? Do you talk about Western Europe, Eastern Europe? Do you have content on specific countries? Do you also have content on cities, right? So do you just have one post on, say, Madrid? Or do you have many posts on Madrid? If so, I would be creating boards about Madrid. But if you're just at the country level, maybe you're creating boards about Spain. So it just has to, you have to kind of have these, like, figure out what works based on the depth and the breadth of your content. And just remember, like, you can create boards as you go. Oftentimes, I'm still creating new boards as I create new content. So say, for example, I pinned or created a post on, top tips for digital nomads, right? I would look at what boards I have. And if I had a board already about being a digital nomad, I would save my pin there. But if I didn't, I would go create one, right? So it's just this little check in that you do with yourself. Like, is there the best place for me to put this? And oftentimes, like, I'm sure we're going to get into this, but I really encourage everyone to design multiple pins per post, multiple different and distinct pins that are still on brand for your piece of content, because you put so much effort and energy into writing that blog post or making that video or publishing that podcast episode. Don't just share it once. Design multiple pins. And this is where having a variety of Pinterest boards is going to benefit you, right? So say you have that post on Madrid, you could save it to a board on, things to do in Madrid. Maybe it's called Madrid, Spain, but maybe you also have a board called Spain, and you can add a couple of pins to each board, right?
Love that. And while we're on the topic of boards, I'm curious what your stance is on group boards. Are they still helpful? And if so, how should we be using them?
Yeah, like, group boards used to be really popular back around like 2019, 2020, before, essentially what happened is that Pinterest clued in to how bloggers were using Pinterest boards. I don't want to say manipulating reach, but, we were using Pinterest boards as a way to get more saves on our pins, right? When Pinterest realized that loophole, they basically shut down that as an avenue for boosting reach. So that's really and truly why Pinterest boards have fallen out of favor. However, I have seen some other, Pinterest experts say that they've had some success with group boards for particular accounts, but it really depends on the quality of those boards, right? I would say in general, group boards aren't probably not worth, the best of your energy. We want to be putting our energy into building our profiles, creating our own boards, designing pins for our own content, saving our own content. It's very much about you, not so much about what you're doing with other people on Pinterest. But say you have a little bit of energy left and you want to experiment, find some high quality boards that, the members of those boards are people in your niche. Maybe they're respected experts, and the pins that are being saved there are high quality. If so, then give it a try. But if it's low quality, like say you're coming back to Pinterest, which I feel like is relatable for your listeners, and you're like, oh my gosh, my Pinterest account's a mess, go look at those group boards. I guarantee you the vast majority of them are poop right now. So you can just leave, or if leaving seems too drastic, you can archive the board. So archiving is like putting it on the shelf. It tucks it away at the bottom of your profile. It no longer appears on your public profile. It no longer has an impact, but you didn't quite leave. You've just archived it. So maybe, I don't know, maybe group boards will become a thing again in the future. And this is not as drastic of a move as like, I'm gonna leave every single board, you can just tuck it away.
Got it. Okay, so let's say now we've got our boards down and we're ready to plan what we'll actually pin. How do you recommend travel bloggers go about creating a Pinterest content plan? And how many pins should they be sharing about each day?
For sure. I think like taking Pinterest into account when we create our content is the best move that you can make. For one, I see that, so many people struggle with Pinterest because Pinterest is the afterthought, right? I already created my content and now I'm just going to like shove it on Pinterest. But especially with the changes we've seen with the Google algorithm updates, the loss of rankings in search results, particularly travel bloggers have been hit very hard by these updates, right? You need to start thinking, okay, I need to prioritize Pinterest in my content creation, not just my content distribution. So I encourage you that the places you want to check our Pinterest trends. It is a free tool accessible to anyone with a free Pinterest business account. Go there, start searching for the keywords that are relevant to your content, relevant to your audience. The second place you want to check is just the Pinterest search bar. Start typing things in, just like on Google, right? Before you paid for a keyword tool, so many people probably told you to go on the guided search, go on the little search bubbles that show up at the bottom. It's the same thing on Pinterest. So if you're seeing these keywords come up in search results, Pinterest is telling you, hey, people are searching for this. So I want you to prioritize doing this preliminary research before you create your content, because you're going to have so much more success than someone who's already created content and is like, let me find the best keyword to just like slap on this and like, hope that it's relevant. So I encourage you to check those two places, Pinterest trends, the Pinterest search bar itself. Don't freak out if you don't find anything in Pinterest trends. I find that it's very limiting and it prioritizes certain niches over others. So don't panic if you don't find anything in there. That's actually completely normal. But go on the predicted searches that you're going to find in the search bar and use it to plan out your content. So, I'm sure, we all have our own methods of planning. I'm kind of old school. I like a notebook and a pen. I like just like getting my ideas down on paper. So I would just start writing down what those topics are going to be. And then you can use a tool like Pinterest Trends. What's great is it has trend graph data showing you how search ebbs and flows for particular keywords. And you could time your content, especially like, you know this about me, Jessie, I'm all about seasonal content. So travel bloggers, you can have so much fun with this, right? It doesn't matter what city, country, region, or type of travel you're focused on. You can easily put a seasonal spin on this. You can just where to go in winter, spring, summer, fall, what to pack, or, top places to visit for this holiday in this place. There's so much you can do that's creative and takes into account what people are searching for. So, when you're planning out that content, decide, okay, am I publishing? This is very foundational blogging, once a week, twice a week. And then once you have your content, for pins, bare minimum, one brand new pin every single day. And you want to remember, we are not repinning. Are you familiar with repinning, Jesse, like back in the day?
Yeah, like repinning like something you pin to the Madrid board, then waiting a week to repin it to the Spain board, that type of thing?
Yeah, so we're not taking the exact same pin image or video and adding it to multiple boards. We are making sure that pin is optimized with our keyword, the graphic is on point, and we're saving it to the best possible board, and we're stepping away and letting Pinterest take it the rest of the way. Instead, we're going to go design a fresh pin, a new pin that has never been uploaded. And please don't try to cheat the system by saying, oh, I just added a filter. The amount of times I hear that, let's just go design a fresh pin. I highly encourage everyone to have templates. Doesn't matter if we're talking about Pinterest or anything else. You want a template, right? You want to know that, okay, I create this content. Here are the 5 pins I'm going to design. I'm going to spread them out. So wait a week to share the same link again. This is what I encourage everyone to do to avoid getting caught up in the spam blocker. You don't want to appear scammy or spammy on Pinterest. It's often a death sentence for your account. So we don't want that to happen to you. So bare minimum, 1 pin a day, right? So say you have 7 pieces of content, you're going to share 1 every single day. Up to, I would say, I would never pin more than 10 times. I think 10 times a day is still extreme. I think the happy place right now, 3 to 5. Even 2 is okay. And the thing is, like, what's great about Pinterest is, like, it might seem like, oh my gosh, new platform, so much. But as time goes on, your bandwidth for what you can do is going to increase, right? So maybe then 2 pins is comfortable and you're like, you know what? I feel great with this. I'm going to start doing 3 pins a day. So, you don't have to dive into the deep end to start. Start with 1. That becomes manageable. You start with 2, then 3, but you don't need to pin like 30 times a day. Don't do
I'm
that.
sure everyone's happy to hear that. Now, we're talking about pins. You mentioned templates. I'm
hmm
curious about like the visual aspect of pins. What should travel bloggers keep in mind for creating visually captivating pins that get clicks?
For sure. So clarity and just like you want to like lean into that wanderlust, right? I think travel is very much like you guys are selling this dream, right? It's like, oh, look how beautiful this place is. Like you need to plan your trip here. And the first point of contact, it's your images, it's the videos you're creating. So start capturing, stunning photos and videos that you can use in your content. And if you're not sure about like, oh, what should my pin image look like? There's actually this thing where we can see in Pinterest results. If you search for the keyword you're trying to rank for, look at those pins in the top row. Oftentimes, they look very similar. Oftentimes, they're in the same color palette, they have the same type of layout, they have the same type of text. So if you're trying to rank with that, you kind of have to fit the mold. There's this visual aspect to ranking on Pinterest. So clear text, something I see a lot is you just want to make sure things are high contrast, right? So if your font is white, your background needs to be dark so we can see it, right? You want to avoid clashing colors together. You want to avoid using only hard to read text. Like don't make sure it's not all script. Make sure it doesn't look like Comic Sans. Like that type of font just doesn't really, it's hard on people's eyes. And you also want to remember that 85% of Pinterest users, they're on their phones, right? So I'm trying to like just pull out my phone here to show you. But it's like, think about just how small these images are, right? Like if I'm opening up the app, we can see how tiny this image is. So make sure that someone can read it on their mobile device, right? They're going to see it like this big, not like this big, right? So, there's that clarity. There's that, making sure we're matching what's already ranking and just, putting our best photos forward. I think that's really what sells our content more than anything else.
And you mentioned videos. How many of your pins are you doing like photos versus videos, or are you mainly doing photos?
I, I think with travel bloggers, you have a unique opportunity to create really beautiful video pins, right? Like, when you're stopping to take that photo, swap it to video, just take some footage, walk someone through the space, pan across. Like, you're so good at this, Jesse. All over your Instagram, amazing footage that we should be turning into video pins. But I think it's just selling that even more. And I think a video tells more than a photo, but it's having a nice balance. I do think, static image pins have the best longevity because, like, sometimes Pinterest loves showing video pins. Other times, video pins are being primarily ads. Like, it seems like more and more in the Pinterest search results, the video pins I'm seeing are just advertisements. That doesn't mean that a video pin can't rank in search results, because sometimes it does. You really just have to experiment and, play around with, okay, if I'm going to do 2 image pins, let me do 1 video pin, like 2-to-1 type ratio or 3-to-1. Just play. It depends on your templates too, right? Also, another thing is, like, just because, on Canva, you can animate a static pin, please don't save the same pin as a PNG and as an MP4 when it's the same, essentially the same. You're just making one a video. Let's use different illustrations or different video or different photo in our video pins versus our image pins. But you just got to experiment.
And then the other piece of creating the pin is optimizing them for Pinterest SEO, or as you call it, Pincio. Do you have any favorite keyword research strategies for Pinterest, and how many keywords are you using in a pin?
For sure. Really great questions. We always have to remember Pinterest is a search engine, right? And how you are going to get discovered, how your content or your profile or even your boards are going to get found is by making sure you put all your keywords in all the right places. So we don't need any fancy tools for keyword research. I, you know, I'm all about getting to basics when it comes to SEO. Pinterest search bar, Pinterest trends. This is all you need, right? To find the keywords that are going to be relevant to your content. So, in terms of like the number of keywords, you always want to choose that primary keyword phrase, right? So, we're not just going to use travel. Is it solo travel for females, for example, or solo travels for women, or traveling solo to Europe? What is that phrase, that primary phrase we're trying to rank for? We want it to be front and center. So if that means making sure it's in the text on your actual pin image, making sure it's what the file is named when you're uploading it to Pinterest, making sure it's in our pin title, that it's in our pin description. So when it comes to writing our pin description, we have 500 characters, which giving you like a lot of room to include some related keywords as well, right? So if you're talking about solo traveling as a female, there's got to be, I'm sure a word is safe might be one that is going to be used, right? So, what are those related words that we know our audience is also searching for? Also, when you're typing in a search bar and it's going to populate a whole bunch of responses based on your root keyword. So, when you're choosing whatever your keyword phrase is, use some of the related words that are going to pop up. So you'll see when you search on Pinterest, the little bubbles will appear. So you can incorporate some of those words into your pin description. And please write sentences. We're optimizing for humans, right? Nobody wants to just read, words with dashes in between them. And of course, another thing we can do is add topic tags. So topic tags are predefined by Pinterest. You don't get to write them like a hashtag. Essentially, Pinterest has this database of the topic tags they have decided that exist, and we got to play within the confines. So you just want to type and search. So maybe travel. Okay, let me tag this travel. Oh, I don't think safety is going to be a topic tag, but maybe Europe. Maybe the city is, or travel itinerary. So you just want to add those on as well.
And then Oh, you did mention hashtags. So I know people ask hashtags, no hashtags. What's the verdict on hashtags in 2024?
It's so like 2024 into 2025, it's so hard to know because, hashtags were a thing, then they weren't a thing, and then now they're kind of back and you can click on them. But essentially, how I see Pinterest using hashtags, they're using them like keywords. So just use keywords because keywords are never going to go out of style, right? And I want you to be creating for like a longevity, right? Your pins to be found forever, right? So, instead of like hashtag female solo traveler, just put female solo traveler because they're functionally working the same way. And, we don't know if hashtags are going to go out of style again. So just do the keyword, choose the keyword instead.
Got it. And now, okay, let's say we've got our pin created. I know you touched on this a bit already, but how should we be deciding when and where to pin, and how many different boards should we be pinning to?
Yeah, so this is all just like experimentation. Like essentially like what is the going to be the best board really just depends on you pinning and you seeing how your boards perform, right? Like say for example, I published a post on anything regarding mental health. I have my mental health and wellness board. I also have my mental health tips board, and I'm just going to go to my boards and look at the pins that are in there and I'm like, okay, how are these pins performing, right? Do I have a lot of pins on this particular board that are getting a lot of clicks and a lot of saves? If so, I want to add my pin there because I'm giving my pin the best chance, right? So you're not going to get this data for yourself until you start pinning. And, I always try to think that like every pin or every piece of content I have has a best possible board that it can go to. And there are infinite variations of where I could save that pin. But, I'm not trying to create 10 Pinterest boards for one piece of content. I'm trying to think about like, what are my little silos going to be? Where am I going to be constantly like putting pins and like feeding into that? Because we don't want a bunch of like dead boards either, right? So there's no clear cut answer to this because you need to get started and you need to see how your boards perform. So, say back to our post on Madrid, right? Maybe you saved it to a Madrid titled board. Maybe you saved it to a board titled Things to Do in Madrid. Maybe you have a board on Spain. You have your content, experiment, pinning one here, a new pin to the second board, a new pin here, and check back in 30 days and see what's happening, right? And you're like, oh, okay. When I'm saving to a more keyword phrase titled board like Things to Do, it does better. And we're not going to do this just once. You're going to take all your content. And I think there's like a very important, no matter what we're doing, we all need to sit back and look at the data, right? Because best practices, you use them to get started, but you don't use them to scale, right? Because it's so generalized to everybody, right? Like I'm just telling you what my experience has taught me, what's been working and what is working and going to serve you going into next year. But you need the data for your own account, right? And unless you get started and experiment, and this isn't just like about boards. This is also going to be about what content do I create that's going to do the best, you know? Do listicle type posts or city guides or itineraries or, like top 10 places. Like what type of content is performing for you? You got to sit back and look at the data, right? What type of pin design is working the best for you, right? I encourage you to have at least 5 different pin templates that you're going to use for your content. Okay, great. You pinned for 6 months. Go scroll through your account and tabulate and see what are your top 3 pin designs. Great. Keep using that. Cancel the 2 that suck and go design some new pins and keep rolling with it, right? And the same can be true for your boards. Which boards are working out? Like maybe the Things to Do in, that's not ranking. Your pins that you save there aren't getting clicks, then stop saving pins to those types of boards, right? There's a lot of experimentation that goes into success on any platform. But unless you get started and get the data, I really can't tell you what's going to work best for you.
When you mentioned like if a board's not doing well, stop saving to it. Do you also delete or archive the boards that aren't doing well?
Yeah, so I'm not a deleter. I'm not an archiver for a board that has my pins. You can merge boards, right? You can move pins from one board to another. So, say it's been a year and you have this one board and nothing you save to it is doing anything. You can merge it. Maybe you want to merge your things to do in Madrid with your Madrid board. You can literally just drag and drop it and it's going to merge all the pins. So I would do that. I would never delete any board that has my pins without first moving those pins, right? Or you can just like move on and design new pins and save those to boards that are working. We could also do that. It depends how many boards we're working with. Because I think stopping and like cleaning up our profile can take a lot of energy, and maybe your energy is better spent on, hey, I'm going to go design like 5 new pins and save that to the board that's working.
Got it. And I was just thinking, I don't think we touched on this yet, and I know you've taught about it because I'm in Natalie's amazing course, and I know something you've mentioned is the seasonal content, but when to pin the seasonal content, ahead of time. When are you like if you have a Halloween post or a holiday gift guide, when are you actually pinning those posts?
Yeah, so like the Christmas holiday is very different or special or unique, I would say, because Pinterest themselves had said that people start searching for Christmas in June. So people are getting started very early with like the main holidays that roll around at the end of the year. But typically, for any holiday, I say 90 days, right? So you want to get started 3 months early is like optimal. And if you search around in Pinterest trends, you'll see the data. Like these dates typically line up that 90 days out is when traffic starts to peak up like a little bit for this type of seasonal and holiday content. And I love to get started early because one, it just takes the stress out of creating content. I know what's coming up, but also I'm giving Pinterest the time it needs to index my pins and to start showing up in search results and to start, being found by the right people. And remember, if I encouraged you all to wait a week to share the same link, having 3 months means I've got 3 months where I can share a new pin every week that's linking to my content and allowing me to build momentum, right? So this is why I encourage everyone to get started early. So just count back on your calendar, 3 months, or even 60 days is great. It's the thing is like we don't want to wait till the last minute because it takes time for Pinterest to index and show your pin to the right people. If you're like listening to this and there's a holiday running around the corner and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm late. Yes, but you're also early for next year. So, what's great about Pinterest is that your pins are going to continually be found year in, year out. So, you're just early for next year. Don't stress too much about that.
And do you keep the same mindset with the seasonal pinning like for travel bloggers? Many destinations have, certain times of year that people are actually researching them and booking them. So would it be like 90 days before people are researching, their Kyrgyzstan trip, their Rome trip, whatever it is?
Yeah, because if we think about like how people plan travel, especially I think most of our audience, they're not like traveling 12 months a year type of people. Big trips take months of planning. They're thinking and saving early, booking things early. So I think it's only going to benefit you to get that content out early.
Well, all these tips have been super, super helpful creating pins, creating a content strategy, optimizing. But I know one pain point for, I think, everyone is time. So I'm curious if there are any ways that travel bloggers can streamline their Pinterest strategy.
For sure. I think batching is going to be the best use of your time. Like, I've been a blogger since 2016, and I always, feel the best, as in, like, there's no guilt, there's no stress, there's no overwhelm when I get started early and I batch. So, whether that means I'm going to sit here and I'm going to design, Pinterest pins for these 10 blog posts. I'm going to make sure they're already saved to my computer. Like, I don't need to go back into Canva and, I'm going to know what my keywords are and I'm just going to sit and pin. So, like, I'm a fan of batching. So I batch schedule blog posts. I also batch design pins. I batch schedule pins at least 30 days at a time because I found that I don't get stressed out about Pinterest, right? And it's more manageable for me to like just dedicate a couple hours of my time to getting a specific thing done and then it's done, for at least 30 days. I don't have to think about publishing blog posts again until next month. So to me, batching is the way to go, and just being organized also really helps. Like I said, having those templates, right? Have a template for what your pins are going to look like. So I literally just, like, you've seen me do this, Jessie. I literally hop in Canva, duplicate the 5 templates, drop in new images, change the text. I am done. Like, there's no staring at a blank screen. There's no, I don't know what my pins are going to look like. I know, right? And I just get it done. So I feel like when you're able to do that, and also just have some type of template for what your pin descriptions are going to be, right? So I'm a fan of ask a question or two, click here for what's the keyword, and then elaborating on my content and saying, plus get your free whatever, like whatever the benefits are. So I think once we have these formulas, we have these routines of doing things, we don't get stressed, we don't get overwhelmed because we know, like, okay, I did my keyword research this day, I'm gonna go create my content, it's all scheduled out, let me go design some pins, let me schedule those pins. So I think that's what works for me. And I think it's very similar to how anyone is successful on any platform. I don't think that, creating things on the fly leads to the best success. It just leads to more stress. I don't ever want any of you to have my, oh shoot, I didn't pin today feeling. I never have that feeling. I know that my pins are scheduled and everything is handled. And, it's just out there doing its part, and I don't have to worry about it until like my pins run out, right? So batch, schedule, and save the stress.
And do you use any tools for scheduling or like caption creation, like ChatGPT or Tailwind or anything like that?
No, I don't use it for writing pin descriptions and titles, just mostly because like I've done it so much that it's probably easier for me to just write it myself than using a tool. You can of course use a tool like ChatGPT, or even Tailwind has their ghostwriter tool that you can use to write pin descriptions and pin titles. But I honestly do feel that, you are the best GPT. You know your content. Just like you have to write a metadata description, you know your content. You know what's in there. So I think when you just give yourself that little bit of confidence, like, I wrote that, I can write 500 characters. It's not that much, Other tools that I like scheduling with, I'm a Tailwind girl. I have been from the beginning. I know there's so many tools out there for scheduling pins, but Tailwind has been with me since day one. They never let me down. And they're a platform that's constantly evolving. Like, they have the Ghostwriter tool, which I think is cool. And they also, even just recently, have launched a pin scheduler, which is very much like the old school scheduler that they had, but it's to prioritize Pinterest and help you to save time. So I think with tools like that, you can't go wrong. You can also schedule pins directly on the Pinterest website. So yeah, I'm an old school girl when it comes to Pinterest. Tried and true methods. Canva, can't beat that for graphic design. It's the fastest one out there. So yeah, that's what I use.
Love it. Well, this has been so, so helpful. Thank you for sharing your tips. Before we sign off, can you just let everyone know where they can find you?
Yeah, for sure. I am, at the time we're filming this, at Nadalie Bardo on all platforms. I am going to be going through a bit of a rebrand, so I will be your pin coach soon by the new year. So that's where you can find me. And yeah, I've got lots of, really great resources. Will you be linking to any, Jessie?
Yep, I'll have all your links in the show notes. I'll have Natalie and I, for anyone watching or listening, did a co-hosted free webinar too. I'll link that.
Yay.
And any links you want to share with me, I'll pop in the show notes and video description too.
For sure. I would just say one thing you want to grab is maybe my Pinterest best practices cheat sheet. It's 15 pages, and a lot of what we talked about, like, oh, don't share the same link again for 7 days. So there's a one pager that breaks down the rules. And then as you read the PDF, I'm explaining it more. I answer a lot of the top questions inside that guide. So it's just a good thing to have handy as you're working through Pinterest.
Amazing. And I'll have that as well linked in the show notes. All right. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you feel inspired and empowered to start utilizing the powers of Pinterest to grow your traffic. I'd also like to thank our sponsor one last time, Travel Payouts, for helping to make this video possible. Don't forget to grab their in-depth guide to growing your traffic with Pinterest. That is linked in the video description. And while you're there, make sure to grab access to my free travel blogger resource library. There are a ton of resources in there on growing your community and increasing your blogging profits, and that includes a cheat sheet based on today's video. And of course, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos sharing these strategies for bloggers who want to turn their blogs into profitable full-time businesses. Happy blogging!